Carol was talking, we were talking about, I was stationed in Tucson, Arizona for 3 years. From actually, it was 1986 to 1989 that I was in Tucson. And there's a restaurant down there. It's still there because I was down in this area last year, and it's called Pinnacle Peaks. And great steakhouse, just fantastic. When I was in the Air Force, when I was stationed down there, we used to take newcomers that would come in. We'd say, hey, listen, we're going to take you to the steakhouse, and it is top of the line. It's fancy, and so you need to wear a tie. It's a place where you've got to wear a tie in order to get in. So we get down there and we take them in. Well, if you wear a tie, they cut it in half, staple it to the ceiling. So when you walk in there, there are ties everywhere. And I got one hanging in there somewhere, as long as they kept them up there from that far back. But it's a great place. Last night I was in Chicago for quite some time, and I actually ended up while I was in Chicago, I ended up I loved a little restaurant called Portillo's, and I was telling Carol that last year, you come all the way to Arizona to have hot dogs? No, it's Italian beef. And if you get it dipped, that's the best. Anyways, my name is Mike Busdicker. I've been in the industry a long time, since 1982, where I graduated from the Department of Defense Biomed School. Actually, it was the Air Force Biomed School back then. Before they combined it all and moved it to Fort Sam Houston in Texas. So that's, and then I left the active duty Air Force in 1989. I did put 20 years in with the Air National Guard as also, so 27 years with the Air Force and retired. But after I left the Air Force, I worked for a few organizations. I started off with an organization, for those that can remember, it was Service Master Maintenance Management Services. So they ended up selling the management services portion of Service Master to Aramark. So I transitioned from Service Master to Aramark, and then I left there. Somebody lured me away, and I worked 5 years with Trimedics. That was before they bought Aramark. So I've worked for Service Master, Aramark, and Trimedics before they all became one as Trimedics. So great organizations. Talk about orientation programs. I've seen a tremendous mix of orientation. And I think that we fail as an industry and as organizations if we don't put a proper orientation program in place. And a lot of that is, when we start taking a look at it, oh, that's just a form that HR sends us, so we've got to check the box. And that's where we fall into a lot of problems and issues with a lot of the technicians or a lot of the individuals, even leaders. And I would say from all the way from the front line up to organizational and executive leadership. When you join a new company or you move to a new organization, what type of orientation program is there? And if you look here, what I would like to do is I want to focus this on not from the frontline perspective, but more so from an individual perspective with orientation, as well as leadership and the responsibilities along those lines. So when we talk about responsibility, how much of the responsibility for an orientation program falls on the front line? And I would say minimal. Even if they're not, even if they get the checklist and they see the checklist and they read through it, pretty much their part of the orientation process ends there. It is up to organizational leadership and those that have been with the organization long enough to drive that orientation process and make sure it's successful. And a lot of the organizations that I've been with, break it up into 30, 60, and 90 days. So I want to step through what's required, what we're going to talk about for the 30, 60, and 90 days. So day 1 through 30, day 31 through 60, and day 61 through 90. What are the expectations? What are the requirements? Well, if you look here, the purpose, what is the purpose of an orientation program? And I think a lot of organizations get stuck in on item 1 there, both of them are item 1, so both of them have same priority. So, but really they get stuck in that it's a corporate produced checklist. HR provides a checklist, and that's what you provide those that are doing the orientation, and that's as far as the program goes. When actually, when you look at it, it's an experience. It's an experience for those that are joining the organization or coming into the organization or maybe new to the field. It's actually an event. It's not just an experience. It is an experience and an event. It's not a corporate produced checklist. So you've got to understand what type of experience do you want those individuals to have in the first 30 days, days 61 through 90, and then days that follow as well. So we'll cover a little bit about what the responsibilities of the individuals involved in the program, human resources, team members, because it's not just that individual, it's the entire team that should be involved in the orientation process. And that includes, you know, other support resources. So when you look at IT, you look at the supply chain, you look at department directors, if they're specialized in an area, you look at what that specialization is and who's involved in that as well. So you're not just orientating them to the department, you're orientating them to the entire organization. So the first 30 days, you think of the first 30 days as an opportunity to learn. So that's that 30-day period for that new individual really needs to be an opportunity to learn the organization, learn the department, learn the team members. And if they're new to the industry, it's also learning the industry, right? Who are the major players in the industry? Days 31 through 60 are applying personal learning and expertise. So that's when that orientee is starting now. Days 31 through 60 is applying that personal knowledge that they have, any expertise that they have. How does it fit in with the department? How does it fit in with the organization? And then days 61 through 90 is the opportunity for that individual to really optimize what they're doing within the department, within the organization, and owning that responsibility as well. And again, I say the orientee, yeah, they have a small part of that, but leadership and supporting organizations really drive that and giving them the ability to optimize and own. So it's more of a, you know, you're leading them by the hand the first 30 days, then you're breaking off a little bit 31 through 60, and then 61 through 90, they should be able to be out and about and doing what they were hired to do. So days 1 through 30. They need to understand the company's mission, vision, values, the culture. You know, I've moved around from, I was born and raised in Ohio, and I worked in Cleveland for a while, and then I was up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then I was in the Chicago area, and now I'm out in, now I'm in Utah. And I'll tell you, the culture between the organizations that I worked for in those locations is extremely different. And you know, in Utah, people that you go to church with may be people that are leaders in different organizations or different hospitals, or, and so it's quite interesting, and the culture is so different. I mean, from Cleveland to Milwaukee, there's a significant difference there. And you need to understand the culture, as well as the orientees need to understand what the culture is as well. And how do they align with a specific job? I've always said, And I've always asked in presentations that I've done, how many of you have mission statements for your department? And when I ask that question, I always tell people, if you have a mission statement for your department, you should take it down off the wall, tear it up and throw it away. Because your mission should be no different than what the hospital's mission is. As leaders, it's up to you to really take that mission statement and break it down, and how does your department contribute to the mission? Now, you can have a different vision and different values that should align with the organization, but the mission statement should be the same. That's my personal opinion. So, you know, I know others out there say, well, we've got our own mission statement and it aligns with the organization. Well, I'm a firm believer that it should be the same, and your staff, new hires, should understand how your department supports that mission of the organization. You want to make sure that you outline expectations and job responsibilities and be clear and defined with those. Don't leave it open for interpretation. They need to understand they were hired for this reason, to do this job. Now, there may be multiple things that they're doing, especially if you start looking at leadership. But even then, from a leadership perspective, they need to know what is their area of responsibility, who are they responsible for, what are they responsible for, and how much leeway and latitude do they have in that process. And it's so important to follow up during this entire process as well. They need to learn the systems, tools, and workflows. They could be different than organizations that they've been with before. You know, when you talk about the purchasing, parts purchasing, or anything like that, from one organization to the next, it's different. Maybe everything goes through the supply chain. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's a contract services and it goes through the organizational purchasing department of the contracting organization. So they need to learn that. What CMMSs are they using? Workflows as far as job codes, repair codes, a number of things like that as well. And they need to build relationships with their team members. They really need to have the organizational chart, not just from the department perspective, but also from the organizational perspective. Who is the CEO of the hospital? Who's the chief operating officer? Who's the CNO? Department directors as well, especially if they're specializing and they're in different areas. They need to understand that. By the way, this is interactive. Anytime you want to, you know, if you got anything to say, just say it or raise your hand or whatever you want to do. So you provide any input that you would like. Yeah, I like the comment here from our buddy from the office, right? Is that where he's from? You know, what you don't want to do is you don't want to learn something on the third week of the orientation or onboarding process that you should have known in, you know, you should have known since day one. What's that?
I said 1 month later.
Or a month later, or 2 months later, yeah. Or even 3 months. You're in days 61 through 90, and all of a sudden you find out something that should have been relayed to you in day one or week one.
Well, I have two comments. One of which is my experience with missions, visions, and values, right? Organizations typically have. It goes in two ways. One is they just do it for the sake of saying they have it because it gets them through whatever they need to get through. And two, the others really put them out and believe in them. The ones that believe in them, I found are more successful. And what I've tried to do is focus on that message and drive my department to achieve that. And it gives me a barometer, a litmus test as to whether I should or shouldn't do something because it either supports or doesn't support.
Right. And, you know, when I worked for Intermountain Health, I was with them for 14 years. And I'd been with them probably 3 or 4 years, and the board got together and they put out a new mission statement. And well, they had merged with Sisters of Charity Leavenworth, So we picked up hospitals in Colorado and Montana as a religious organization. So their mission statement was a little bit different than what Intermountain's was. But Intermountain came out and said, overall, from an organizational perspective, our new mission statement is to help people live the healthiest lives possible at the lowest possible cost. But there was also some sub comments on there that, you know, we do it without impacting quality. We actually improve quality while reducing cost to the consumer. But what it was, help people live the healthiest lives possible. So that was the mission statement in the clinical engineering department. And I would go out when I would do rounds at the hospitals. There were 33 of them. I would go out and I would ask the clinical engineering staff. I'd walk in and I would talk to them and say, hey, by the way, how does living the healthiest lives possible, the organization's mission statement, how do we contribute to that? And if they fumbled around and stumbled and couldn't tell me, I went to the leader and I said, listen, that's a failure. Because if you don't tell them how they contribute to that mission statement, they don't know what it is they're doing then. They're here just to repair equipment and keep patients safe. You know, how do we impact that mission statement? So, did you have anything else, Dave? Okay, moving on. So key activities and learning objectives for the first 30 days. I know a majority of organizations out there have an orientation day, at least one day. Some other organizations that I've been with have had multiple days of orientation. When I went to Service Master, when I first joined them, it was multiple days of orientation, and it included a number of different things, especially like from a leadership perspective. We went through a business, well, I'm losing the word now, and I'm getting old, so, but anyways, we went through etiquette, business etiquette. What's it look like when you're attending lunch with a client? What's it look like when you're attending lunch with other leaders? What is expected and what is expected of you? They did a presentation thing where you got up in front of a camera and you presented on a topic that they gave you 30 minutes before, and you had to give a 3 to 5 minute discussion on that, and then they took you into another room and put it up on the screen and showed it. And that was one of the hardest things, I think, was actually watching myself on a screen and counting the number of times that I said, but you don't even realize it until you actually watch it. The other thing is complete required training modules. So I know that a lot of organizations out there have that as well. They're required by regulatory agencies to go through that orientation or to go through those modules, whether it's bloodborne pathogens, as well, but anyways, as well as things like I know fire safety, fire extinguishers, bloodborne pathogens, even the environment of care. We should have a part in that as well from the HTM side. There should be items covered on there from the HTM side. Shadow team members. So those that they're going to be involved with, have them shadow those team members. Remember, this is during the days 1 through 30. So they're going out, if they're specializing in imaging, maybe they're following a rad tech or radiologist specialist, equipment specialist, CRES, or whoever works on the imaging equipment. You could potentially have them shadow a rad tech in maybe a specialty area that they're going to be in, or the OR, a number of things like that. Even with leadership should be able to shadow somebody within their own department, but if they're the leader within the organization, shadow somebody that's in the operations side and see, especially if you're involved in the processes. So if you're involved in things like the supply chain, then leaders can follow people in the supply chain for a day or a half a day and understand what the workflows and processes are. We want to make sure that they review the policies, procedures, and documentation requirements. That includes everything from corporate department level, as well as requirements. These are requirements, not suggestions. So when you look through it, what is the travel policy? What is the expense policy? What is the purchasing policy? How much purchasing authority do you have that you could sign off on? What are the requirements for the CMMS? So the first 30 days, they should be covering that information as well and understanding what they need to do. The expected outcomes in the first 30 days, really a basic proficiency in tools. So they should understand the CMMS, how it works, what are their documentation requirements, and the regulatory requirements. They should understand clearly what their job duties and responsibilities are. I know when you get to the leadership side, it may extend out a little bit from there. It's not just, hey, we hired you as a biomed tech and you're going to focus on the OR and that's going to be your main area of responsibility. Well, they need to understand and clearly understand what that entails and what's expected from them. As well as I said, CMMS reports, financials, the ordering process. They should also establish an initial rapport with the team and supervisors and leaders. And again, it's going to vary from frontline to leadership. Leadership, a lot of those processes and things that they understand, or that they should understand, include who is it that has an impact on their department? Who is it that, yeah, you know what, I look at that report and yeah, that's good information, but okay, let's move on. Yeah, you're doing great. Or is it a biomed tech that's dealing with the nursing staff or the OR staff, as well as they've got team members that they work with? What type of rapport do they establish with them? I had an account that I went into, and we were a contract service. They had one hospital employee in the department. We had 6 people in the department, one hospital employee, and he wanted nothing to do with any of the staff. We'd come in the morning, we'd have a team meeting in the morning, and as soon as we were done with that, he was gone, out the door. Handled dialysis stuff, and he would be out at the dialysis clinics. I think he was, yeah, I believe he had a secondary job, but he was using our parts to repair others. But he did not want to rapport or anything to do with the staff. And we turned him around to the point where he was actually participating in stuff in the team meetings, but unfortunately, eventually we had to let him go. But it's, you know, your department's only going to rise as high as the lowest performer. So common complaints and mistakes. This is the first 30 days. This is actually taken from individuals that have gone through orientation programs and looked at it. And this is what they say they've experienced in the first 30 days. No clear points of contact. For this issue, who do I contact? For this issue, who do I contact? Well, you contact HR. Okay. Anybody in particular? No, you just call them. They'll take care of it. That should not be the norm. It should be, here's the person. If you got issues with this, this is who you contact. And you can come to me on any of those things, or any of the, you know, maybe they built a rapport with somebody else. And also not enough training on company products and services. So as a company, what do we do? Where do we perform? What outlying areas do we have? Lack of access to essential tools. First 30 days. And the first 2 weeks, they don't have a laptop and they can't get into the CMMS, so they can't complete the documentation and paperwork. And then we expect them at day 30 to have a basic proficiency with that. Well, if they don't have access to it for the first 2 weeks, how are they going to get that in the next 2 weeks? Same thing with expense reports. Oh, you're 10 days behind on expense reports. Okay, but I don't have access to the system to be able to complete it. So that's one of the other complaints, as well as technology issues, malfunctioning laptops. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, and so much of that's really not in our direct control. That's one of the things we don't have control of. Now, I see it getting better in my organization, but that 2-week gap of no access that used to be there.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
I mean, when I started at Intermountain, it took us, we'd have a new hire come in, and it would take us a week for them to get a sign on to the organizational system. And so they couldn't order parts, they couldn't provide any documentation. It was like they were sitting at the bench doing nothing because they couldn't get into anything.
And the messaging it gives,
Yeah,
that's the first impression.
yep,
It's something that you can get in front of it.
yep.
Or having to borrow tools.
Or having to borrow tools.
Why, you have this position open, why is there not a tool set waiting for me when I come in?
Right.
And yet, as I'm now having to bum tools off of everybody else, you know?
Especially if they're filling a position that somebody had left previously. It's not a net new, it's a replacement
Even
person.
still, even
Yeah.
if it's a net new.
Oh, yeah,
You have this
absolutely.
position open, you knew you were hiring somebody, you should have a set of basic tools that you know the beginning environment is going to need, that you should have on hand and ready for them that first week.
Yep. Well, and the last one on here, not having a single person acting as an onboarding guide. Yeah, you may send them like at Intermountain, we had a system-wide orientation, and then we had department orientation. So those individuals, we would send them to our dispatching. We would send them to our ordering. We would send them to, so the different departments or the different individuals we had leading those within the system or within our department, they would sit with each one of those individuals for a specified period of time. But that's not a single point for them to go to. They need to have one point that they can go back to and say, by the way, I sat through this and I have questions here. And so they've got to have a single point.
Typically, look at a preceptor up here is key there.
Yep.
They may not be able to make things happen, but they know what should be happening.
Right.
And they'll help lead to those other points of contact.
And hopefully they've been through a good orientation process themselves.
Having come from a company that was doing all of this, so that within 6 months you were on your own, and then working with a company who doesn't have any of this in place, it really does affect how long the employee stays and how soon they're ready to take
Yep.
off, how soon they're ready to be on their own, as
Yep.
opposed to constantly having to shadow somebody else. Having all these in place makes all the difference.
Yep.
You get more, the company's gonna get more for their money.
Right. And I thought I had on here somewhere, maybe it didn't come over, but there was a Gallup poll that came out, I think it was 2023 is when it came out, and they surveyed a number, I don't know what the exact number was, a number of individuals that were new hires within organizations, and they surveyed them, and 88% of that survey group said that they believe that their organization did not have a good orientation program. 88%, was it? Yeah.
We saw.
Okay, yeah,
Important statistic.
yes. Yeah, it was on there, so. But yeah, 88%. So only 12% of those new hires believe that their organization had a good orientation program. That's a big number.
I've also seen where people don't want to move to another company because they're afraid of what the onboarding process will be like.
Yeah.
They might be well established with their current company, and then move into a new company, new processes, do everything. And some people are stuck to figure that out for themselves. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I know the one organization that I joined the one time, it was actually even before I joined the organization. It was during the interview process, and when we realized that I was going to be joining the company, I sat down with the chief operating officer or the vice president of operations during that process. And they said, here's what our organization is all about. Here's what we do. Here's our main focus. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is even before I joined the company, Dave. So days 31 through 60, if you look at it, begin contributing independently. So they should, at this point, as long as they have that basic proficiency in the tools, resources, the contacts, everything else that they need, they should be able to start working independently on small items. And that should, some of the things that they're working on should reinforce what they've learned within that first 30 days. So it gives them a better base in that than just an overall. Deepen understanding of the process, and you'll notice that all of these are priority 1. So just so you don't, one's not 2 and 3, but they're all 1. So they're all important, yes. So use of visual aid and flow charts. You may have a document that you can give them that says during the ordering process, this is what you follow. During the entering data into the CMMS, this is how you follow that. If you do a repair with parts, if you do a warranty exchange, the different workflows and processes that they have. Because in the first 30 days, when you tell them that, and once they hit day 31 through 60, you may say, hey, tell me about the work order, the entering the work order process. And they may look at you like, oh, I haven't done a whole lot of that and I kind of forgot. And, but that's where you really need to put them into position to where they can deepen that understanding of those processes as well. And understand the question, understand and question the why. And we should be telling them the why. I coached my daughter's competitive softball team, and for 10 years I coached. I went to a coaching clinic one time with the head coach at BYU, the softball team at BYU. So I went there, and one of the things that he told us in that session was, he said, if you can't explain the why, then why are you doing it? And he said, take for instance, people always say, catch the ball with 2 hands, catch the ball with 2 hands. And he said, I don't teach that. If you can't catch the ball with 1 hand, you don't deserve to be in the outfield. Why is the second hand up there? The transition from the glove to the throwing hand. That's why 2 hands. You're not catching the ball with 2 hands. So he said, as a coach, if you say 2 hands, and they go, why? And if you can't explain the why, then why are you doing it?
I found too that if you take the time to explain why this is the procedure, the why we do this, people, now that they understand the why, are less likely to cut corners.
Right. Right. And as well as,
just increases patient safety.
yeah, as well as the why is, sometimes there's significant resistance to change. But once you explain the why behind it, then it may make things a little easier. Of course, when you're switching from a good CMMS to a bad CMMS, hard to explain the why. Yeah.
They know why they're still.
Right.
Not usually one thing why is,
Right.
So to your point, the glove situation, so the why is you don't really need, that's number 1. Number 2 is the hands up there because of the whys, you can get out faster, show it. So,
Right.
So it's usually 1 layer of why is enough as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
If you really want them to be on the understanding.
Yeah. If you're in the outfield and there's nobody on base, do you really need the second hand up there? Well, not really, because you're not transferring the ball at that point until you're throwing it back into the pitcher. But if there's runners on base, now you know why. So really, them taking ownership of small tasks or projects really helps them with engagement and empowerment, and it really demonstrates, I like the fact that it demonstrates a supportive culture as well. Key activities, they should be participating in, and potentially, if they're in leadership positions, owning and doing team meetings. and contributing to team meetings. They should be able to begin executing assigned tasks, seeking feedback and making adjustments or suggesting adjustments to workflows. Regular check-ins. And that is extremely important. It is not a check the box activity. It really is an experience and an active program for, especially at the department level. So really ensuring that the check-ins are being done routinely. When I was going through at Intermountain, our check-ins, days 1 through 30, our check-ins were at least once a week, if not more often. And it was probably better even more often than once a week. When you get days 31 through 60, you may back off a little bit at that point on your check-ins, but they need to be done, and again, at least weekly in days 31 through 60, so that they understand how they're performing to expectations, job responsibilities, how their learning processes, and what suggestions do they have?
Some companies do have like certain things that happen like once out of the blue that you kind of have to learn in the moment to, like, you can't just teach them every like worst case scenario that happens.
Right.
Like the dialysis world, pipe and break mode of pushing it, flow level clinic. But it's like, okay, what do we do from here?
Yeah.
It only happens like every once,
Yep.
once every 5 years or something.
Yeah, at Intermountain, we started installing dialysis units at patients' homes.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to go to a dialysis clinic anymore. They just did it at home. Now that,
He and I, we work together at Honor, but we're both home in dialysis, and he's right. One of the things in dialysis that, you're from Fresenius, right?
Yep.
I'm Vita. One of the things that they did right was, even though we were new, anytime something major happened, it was all hands. Everybody come, everybody learn, everybody help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I specialized in dialysis for a little while,
So you
but
know,
that's back in the Gambro AK-10 and the Drake Willix. Expected outcomes, really a demonstration in competence of core responsibilities, increased productivity. So days 1 through 30, don't expect a ton of productivity because that's the learning phase. That's when they're learning the workflows, the processes, the responsibilities. But days 31 through 60, you should start seeing an increase in productivity in the job responsibilities and things that they're doing. Stronger collaboration with the team. So they should be going to team members if they run into a situation that they're like, I'm not quite sure what I need to do here, or they should be able to go to a team member and say, hey, what do you think? What should I do in this situation? The experienced teammates and individuals that they work with should understand that and know that they're part of the an important part of the orientation process. Some of the current complaints. Big one, first one, lack of leader support. So that is one of the biggest complaints, is that they say, I'm in the orientation program, but I rarely see my leader. I go to them for questions, they're not there. And again, it becomes, from a leader perspective, it becomes a checkbox. Yeah, it's just a checklist that was sent that's got to be completed because HR says so. Orientation is more than that, especially from a leader and support from a leader. Yeah.
I would say that even goes from, say, somebody transition for promotion.
Yeah. Yep.
That's this whole 360 package applies to like
agreed,
promotions.
agreed.
Absolutely. Or maybe a change. Maybe they went from a biomed tech to an imaging tech.
Or in my case, I started hospital, now I'm medical or
Right.
field.
Yep.
Or vice versa.
Yep, absolutely. And then the other one is no formal check-in. And I say, you'll see their formal check-in, not walk by the bench. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Great. We keeping you busy? Yep. Okay. And then you walk away.
But an actual
Yes, absolutely. That's where you're sitting down with the individual and you're talking to them and you're saying, how are you doing? How's the orientation coming? Here's what the expectations were days 1 through 30. How did we do on those? Did we accomplish them? Did you get what you need? Now we're in day 61 or 31 through 60. How are you doing there? Are you accomplishing? What are the barriers? What are resources that I can provide? So formal check-in process. That way, 6 months down the road, when they come and say, well, nobody ever told me that. Well, actually we did. We did a formal check-in on this week, on this day, and here's the topics we covered. And that was one of them. Unclear role expectations and lack of job responsibilities. So when an individual, and when I've talked to individuals about that, what they've said is that I was hired into the organization to do this, and now I'm doing this, this, and this. But yet when I'm doing this, I'm told I don't have any decision authority or decision rights, but I'm involved in the process. Well, that wasn't clearly defined when I joined or when I came to the organization. So really that lack of clear role expectations and job responsibilities is extremely important in the orientation side. And then a lot of people treat orientation as a one-day event. So, they join the organization and you're going to go over to the employee services center. They do a one-day orientation. And when you get through that, then you're done. Then you're officially part of the team and you can jump right in and start working. No, that doesn't work. That may be an organizational orientation, but not a department level orientation. It requires more. It includes coaching and really the clarity piece as well. Days 61 through 90. I don't know how I'm doing on time, Dave.
9:15.
Okay, so I got 15 minutes. So days 61 through 90 should represent transition from learning into consistent performance. They should have increased ownership and independence, alignment with team goals and expectations, and preparation for long-term success. They should know that at the end of 90 days, here's where we expect you to transition to. And that can be covered in days 61 through 90, so that when they hit the 91 days, they understand where they're supposed to be going and what the expectation is. Key activities, goal review and adjustment. So taking a look at their position within the organization, how do they align with the goals? And then making adjustments to ensure that they're contributing where they should be in that goal perspective. They should be taking on individual projects and tasks from the front line all the way up to leadership. The front line, there's a number of things. Some of the best ideas that ever came when I was at Intermountain 14 years, some of the best ideas came from the front line. We went out and I said, what should we stop, start, and continue? And some of the best ideas, and it wasn't like, well, I think if you move the trash can from there over to there, that it requires less distance to walk to throw something away. No, that's not a constructive idea, but the front line they're the ones that are out there doing it.
Well, some of that I feel too is like encouragement from like the very top of the total pole. As I've seen where like the front line bringing that into the top of the total pole and the top of the total pole.
Yep. Sounds like a great idea, but not on my agenda right now. So we used to have idea cards and we'd post them on our huddle board and we would put them up into, ideas in flight and, and if it wasn't an idea that we were going to implement, then it was follow up with that individual to let them know and let them know why.
That's the difference between management and leadership.
Right.
Not every manager is,
Right.
but we like to call
Right.
them, even though they are.
Yep. I always ask that question in the interview process for my leaders is what's the difference between a manager and a leader? Or is there a difference?
And those frontline people you're talking about are leaders.
Yes, absolutely. So they should also become a reliable team member in days 61 through 90. Expected outcomes, complete role integration and independence. They should be in days 61 through 90, developing that process to be independent within their job, accomplishing what their clearly identified expectations and job responsibilities are. Performance metrics and accountability. I think it speaks for itself. Collaboration and communication, not just within the department, but outside the department as well, with individuals that they may interact with, again, from supply chain, with IT, with, you know, a number of those. You look at it now, if the organizations are not building a relationship with IT, that's a problem. That's a big problem. At Intermountain, one of the things that I did there to bridge that gap was I hired somebody from IT into clinical engineering. So
We keep talking about how we need a team that bridges between the two, between biomed and IT, instead of just having a biomed over here that knows this much and biomed over there that knows that much. We need a specialized team.
unfortunately, my IT guy was with us for about 5 years, and then when I left Intermountain, he went back to IT. And it was a,
That's a whole topic of another talk.
yes, it is. Cultural integration, again, they understand the company's values, they understand the team and the individuals on the team as well. Some of the current complaints and frustrations are, again, unclear expectations. And again, that's when you're hired for this, but you're given this, 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 and this, but they don't define clearly what the expectations are of you for these areas that are in addition to what you were hired for. So that needs to be clearly defined. Again, inconsistent direct leader involvement, I think that's been a concern and a complaint in all phases, days 1 through 30, days 30 through 60, and 60 through 90, as well as information overload. They've been given so much in so little time, but yet they're expected to retain that information, even though they may not work with it every day. It may be something that they encounter once a month or things in those areas. So they're getting information overload, which really causes memory lapses, right, Dave?
It causes you to do things like not remember what the acceptable leakage current is.
I get it. Yes, absolutely.
The simplest, most basic biomed fact that you must know, that you're so overloaded with work or information and
Yep.
recall that.
I pick on Dave, I shouldn't, because he attends my sessions and participates, so that's why I stopped picking on Carol, because I was afraid she'd stop attending. Or they would put her presenting across from me, and when you got to compete in a presentation with Dave or with Carol, that's tough. So beyond 90 days, what should beyond 90 days look like? The outcomes shift to long-term performance. So they shift from that 1 through 30, 31 through 60, 61 through 90 to a long-term performance at that point. What is the expectations? What are they expected to do? What are they going to pull forward, and what impact are they going to make within the organization? And how are they going to lead as well? Ownership. They're trusted to make decisions. They should understand what decisions they're trusted to make, but they're trusted to make them. So they don't come to you and say, yeah, I had this problem, this issue, and I made the decision, and you go, oh, really? That wasn't your decision to make. No, in orientation days 61 through 90, you said that I could impact and make these decisions. So ensure that they understand what decisions they're entrusted to make. Let them solve problems, contribute ideas, strategic contribution, long-term planning. As Carol said, the front line, they are leaders as well. So when you start talking about long-term planning and shaping the role, they have impact into that. They should have input into it, suggest ideas, and be able to be involved in the long-term planning process, because it affects them.
Changes.
Yep.
With especially modern technology and now we're getting AI involved.
Yep.
And our culture in the United States keeps changing as well. Also, that's what happens. in
Yes, it
hospitals.
does. And then you look at career development, continued learning and expansion of skills. What is their future with the organization? Where would they like to be? How can we help them get there? Measuring success, you're looking at competence. What level of competence do they have? Are they demonstrating consistent high performance? Building strong relationships. I had frontline individuals that had built relationships with department directors and managers more than I ever did. And those individuals, those department directors would rather call them directly than to talk with me, which is okay. I'm all right with that. Growing influence inside and outside the organization. You look at influence inside and outside, how many of them attend things like MD Expo or these HTM mixers, and how many of them present? I used to tell my staff that they were like, hey, can I go to the AMI conference this year? Yeah, why don't you submit a presentation, see if they accept that. And if they do, absolutely. Had that requirement before too. Contributing to the success of the organization and the industry. Some of the common complaints, a gap between reality and expectation. You can expect me, you can expect me to do these things, but that's not going to happen. It's not reality, because organizational support or changing regulations or things along those lines may prevent it. Lack of continued support, again, no consistent feedback loops, and employee disengagement. Role of orientation support, so human resources, core roles in orientation, they're the ones that introduce individuals to the organization, the culture, the mission, the values. That includes policies, procedures, and alignment, not just within the department, but the organization as a whole. Managing administrative tasks and compliance. They facilitate training, and they should manage the orientation strategy and onboarding plans. That's from an organizational standpoint, not department. They can be involved in the department, and you should pass those department orientation processes through human resources, but they shouldn't have the decision rights on them unless it's in violation of some organizational policy or things along those lines. Leadership sets the tone and they build the clarity. They should communicate, again, mission and values, trust and belonging, clearly define the job role and expectations, provide resources, tools, support, and a safe environment. If you don't provide a safe environment, they're not going to come to you. They're going to go to somebody else, whether it's an informal leader or somebody else within the department or within the organization. New hire orientation failure, HR typically owns the development and implementation, and failure is often a result of poor planning, unclear structure, or maybe the absence of an orientation program to the organization. Direct leaders or supervisors, the research shows failure because of lack of engagement from leadership, whether they're the ones running the orientation program from the department level or they're leading the department and somebody else is the point of contact. That leader still needs to be involved in that orientation process. Treating orientation as a paperwork requirement, it's not a check the box item, it's really being involved. And also unclear job responsibilities is a big one. Again, that mentioned throughout the entire presentation, that is a huge dissatisfier, is the unclear job responsibilities and lack of clear feedback. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, but I got some trivia questions here for those that live in Arizona.